Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I'd do a spring quarterly book review. Um, I tried to do this last year, but I think I only did maybe one and kind of forgot about it the rest of the year. So this year I'm going to make an effort to try and do like a review of everything I read in the spring, through the summer, fall, and then winter. If you're new here, my name is Jessica. I was late diagnosed with autism last year at the age of 38, and reading has been one of my special interests from when I was a very young child. And up until the last couple years, I kind of let it slide out of my life. But I really enjoy reading, so I've been really making an effort to bring it back in my life. And I thought I would share all the books that I've read with you in case you too are a reader and want to get involved and maybe find some new authors that you haven't read before. So let's get to it. We will start with everything that I read in January. The first two books that I read were both by Sherman Alexie. This one was the first one I read, Reservation Blues. Um, Sherman Alexie is an indigenous author based out of Spokane, so most of his books take place on the reservation or in the Washington area. And Reservation Blues is kind of a mix of fantasy, real life. It's about these young kids on the reservation that form a band with this magic guitar, and it kind of leads them through this. I don't know if I want to say like a spiritual journey, but they go to all these new places, meet new people, and things just keep happening through this magic guitar for good and bad. It's definitely a very real book, even though it's fantasy. It deals with a lot of real life issues that people from indigenous communities um, have dealt with their lives or have seen through their friends and family. So it was really good. This one I gave a 5 star. Um, and just yeah, it was incredible, but also very sad, which is kind of, I like sad stories, and so this one was really good. And then this one is kind of the loosely based sequel, Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven. And this one was actually made into a major motion pictures called Smoke Signals, which is one of my absolute favorite movies. But I will say that the movie is nothing like the book. If anything, I felt it related more to this one. They have both these books share characters, Victor and Thomas. They're frenemies, I guess you would say. But yeah, I would say I would recommend the movie Smoke Signals over this one. This one was just kind of chaotic. It had short stories of different people in the tribe, and it was hard to know who was talking through each of the chapters, and so you kind of lost track of timeline and who's telling the story. So this one I think I just gave a 2 star because it was not my favorite. And then in January, my friend and I started a book club based on um, reading books on neurodiversity, and so our first pick was The Autists: Women on the Spectrum by Claire Tornvall. And this was my friend's pick. I had not heard of this one before, but it was really good. I think out of all the books I've read regarding people who have been late diagnosed with autism, this one was one of the better ones. This one was kind of told through the author's point of view of her experience when she went in to get diagnosed, but it also has a lot of facts um, worldwide about mostly women um, on the spectrum and just their experiences, and a lot of data to like support how women have usually very different traits than their male counterparts. So yeah, this one was really good. I really enjoyed it. So the next book on my list was a total impulse buy. I was actually shopping to get my mom a book for her birthday and found this one and got it for myself. I actually had never heard of Agatha Christie until like a few months ago, and I didn't know that she is like one of the 3 most publicized authors of all time. Um, and that she wrote like Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express. Um, so this one at Bertram's Hotel, it was pretty good. It was a little bit predictable. It's about this hotel in London that serves, and I think it's in the 1950s, and it serves very traditional clientele that they used to come in like early 1900s, 1910s, 1920s with their families when they were children, and they come back here, and it's just like they feel like that sense of nostalgia. So on the outside, this hotel is like just it has a nice nostalgic feel, and people feel at home, and they do a really good job catering to people. But then there's a disappearance of a clergyman and a couple wild guests that stay, and so the detective is trying to figure out what happened to this man, and interviewing all these different people, and there's different perspectives throughout it. And so at first you're kind of guessing like, okay, what's going on, what's happening, and then towards the end when it wraps up, it does get a little bit predictable, like I said, but still a really good read, and I enjoyed it. I think it was a good introduction to her work. I definitely want to start reading more Agatha Christie because now that I found her, I think she'll be a really good author to keep reading. This one, even though it was predictable, I give it a 4-star because it kept my attention, and I think I read it in like 2 or 3 days. So, yeah, this one was a fun one. And then my last book for January was Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I've started to read all of the Bronte sisters' work. This book is the Penguin cloth-bound classic, so it's got that nice cloth-bound look, which I like. But as far as like durability, you can kind of see that it's got some flaking from use. And this one I actually bought used online, so it wasn't in the greatest condition when I got it, but I knew that it flaked off, so I kind of wanted a used one so I didn't have to worry about damaging a brand new book. But the book itself, I felt was very similar to Jane Eyre, if you've read that one of hers. It's about this young girl that finds herself without family, and she needs to figure out a way to make money. So she moves to this little French town in France, and I think the town is called Villette, and she takes a job as a teacher. Um, and then it's just kind of about making her way through life by herself as a woman. The one thing I did really enjoy was that the ending was left open-ended, so you don't know if it ends happy or not. Compared to Jane Eyre and um, Wuthering Heights, which is like one of my all-time favorite books, this one didn't quite hold up to those two. Those two I would say are both 5-star. This one I would say is a 4-star. For February, the first one I read was part of our book club again, The Autistic Survival Guide to Therapy by Steph Jones. I probably wouldn't have picked this one up except I had seen another YouTuber recommend this one. I have actually never been to therapy. I don't know if that's good or bad. And so I wasn't sure if this book would be heavily about actually, like, you would have had to been in therapy to enjoy it. But actually it was really good. Whether you've been in therapy and have had good or bad experiences, or if you've never been in therapy, this book was really good. I think it's my favorite one that I've read so far. Again, it's both based on the author's experience of being diagnosed. She's also a professional psychologist, I think. So she also has the degree to like back these ideas up. And yeah, it was just a really good guide, like what to look out for in a therapist, what are some big red flags, and then even what I really liked about it is in the end she talks about, is therapy even for you? and she gives you options like, you know, if therapy may be for you if you were looking for, let's say, to kind of dig deep in your past and look for things that you're unaware of, or do you need a life coach, um, someone who can help you today, like where you are, to get to, like, let's say you're having trouble with job interviews. A life coach could help you get through that. You have a specific goal that you're reaching towards, or maybe you don't need any of that. Maybe you just need to self-reflect and find different outlets of community, like joining a book club or joining an online group. Like, I liked that it wasn't stuck on, yes, like therapy is the answer and here's what to look for. The other book that I had already was Amanda Gorman, The Hill We Climb. So Amanda Gorman is a poet, and she delivered the 46th annual inaugural poem during Biden's induction ceremony into the presidency. And I don't like poetry, but it was very good. So, and I wanted to support her. So I bought this years and years ago. But while I was reading it, I had her, I looked at her up on YouTube and found the video of her, or a video of her giving her speech, so that I could follow along while she was giving it. And it's such a good poem. But yeah, I really enjoyed listening to her give it with her passion, and then reading along with it, because I feel like that just kind of let it sink in even more. And then, as far as library books go, I rented Brides by Jojo Moyes. I think this is the 6th book I've read from her. This one was good. I think I only gave it a 3-star, which is kind of low for most of her books that I read, because usually I really like them. And this was a good story. It was about women, specifically from Australia, at the end of World War II, who married American and British soldiers when they were stationed in Australia. And so at the end of the war, they would ship the brides home, either to America or England, so that they could be with their husbands. And this one was about one of the very last ships leaving from Australia, and they ran out of room on like the cruise line ships, which is what most of these women were put on, and instead they were put on this, like a battleship that was no longer in use, and it was actually this was like its final journey. But the story is told through 4 different women's perspective, who have to share a cabin, and they come from very different walks of. Some come from pretty well off families, some are very poor, some are kind of in the middle. One is a nurse, and it's kind of their individual struggles and like what they're dealing with, as well as like trying to get along as like a group that's stuck on the ship for 8 weeks until they get to England. One of the other books I read was called The Beekeeper's Apprentice. I found it in one of those little libraries in our neighborhood. I just kind of grabbed it because the cover looked good. It actually had like 0 things to do with being a beekeeper or an apprentice, like to a beekeeper. It was about Sherlock Holmes being in, like, he's retired at this point, and he meets this very young girl who's very quick and very just as smart as he is, and so she becomes his apprentice, and they take on these murder cases together, or kidnapping cases. And I think it's part of a book series. The main character's name is Mary Stewart, and it took me a while to get into this one. The first couple chapters were just kind of like her backstory of where she came from, how she met Sherlock, and then a little bit about her going to school and becoming a young woman before like the actual adventures take place. So it took a little while to get into it, and I had started it in the fall but couldn't finish it, so I picked it up in February and finished it just because I needed something to read. It was fine. It was also a little predictable, so I think I gave it a 3-star. I enjoyed it as it went on and as the case progressed, because that was interesting, but I don't think I liked it enough to read other books in her series. Oh, and then the last book that I read for February was one my husband rented for me. It was called The World Has Changed: Conversations with Alice Walker, who is the author of The Color Purple, which is one of my favorite books. My niece introduced me to that book last year, and it was amazing. But Alice Walker, this book is about all these different interviews she's done from like the 1960s through the 2000s. And it's just like on her view of writing the books, her views on being a vegetarian, working for different humanitarian causes, and being a civil rights activist. It's just kind of like a nice compilation of her life through that time period through different interviews. Um, and I didn't think I would like it because I'm not really into autobiographies or biographies about people, but this one was really good, and she's a very fascinating woman. Um, Great author, but also just she has some really great and interesting ideas about life, and I really connected with a couple of things she said. That was an unexpected find, and I'm really glad my husband rented that for me. February's book reading list, I kind of felt like I was in a slump, even though I read some really good books. I just felt like I wasn't excited to read, and I wasn't excited about the books that I had on hand. And I think a large part of that is because we were in the middle of moving and I just didn't have time to read. And since I had bought my books in January, I didn't buy any new ones for February. So I was kind of just like, oh, don't have anything to read, even though I did end up reading some really good ones. And then March, I actually feel like it's been my best reading month yet. I've found some really great ones that I had either planned to read and finally bought, or I went to the thrift store and found like 5 books for $20. And so I was really excited about that, and I found some really good ones that way. And then I rented a couple from the library that were really outstanding. So the first one I found was at the thrift store. It was called Memory Keeper's Daughter by Kim Edwards. This one was about this family in, I think it was 1964. It's this um, man who's a doctor and his wife gives birth to a son, and neither of them know that she actually is having twins. So they deliver the son, and then they deliver a second child, a daughter, who ends up having Down syndrome. Um, and the husband, during that like time frame, he's like really concerned that it's going to um, that the daughter is going to be a burden and basically upset the wife, because as you find out that as a child himself, his daughter or his sister dies, and that really affected the mother and her mental health. So he thinks he's doing the wife a favor, and um, he gives the daughter away without telling the wife. And the wife doesn't know that she's had a baby girl, because I guess in the 60s they would put the women under to give birth, so they're like under anesthesia basically. Um, and so she's out of it. She knows she has a son, but she didn't know she had a daughter. And so the husband tells her that the daughter died. Um, and then from there, the story kind of like follows 2 different families. It follows the family of the doctor, his wife, and their son. And the wife is just miserable for years because she misses her daughter and she didn't even get to hold her. And she feels like her husband is hiding something. She doesn't suspect that she has a daughter that's living, but she just knows he's not telling her everything, and he keeps denying it. And then on the flip side, you have the nurse that, so that the doctor gave the nurse that was assisting the baby and told her to put it in an institution. And the nurse went to that institution and was just like blown away at how horrible it was. And she just like couldn't give the baby away. So she ends up raising the daughter herself. Um, and so you follow both lives and how like really great the daughter's doing, but also the concerns of that the mom, the nurse, has over raising a daughter with Down syndrome, and then like all the troubles that the doctor's family's having just because the parents are fighting all the time. The son isn't getting the attention he deserves, and so it's very fascinating. And then at the end, the lives of the two families kind of come together, and it's just a really good book on like what it meant to be neurodiverse, especially with Down syndrome during that time frame and how stigmatized it was, and just really good. Yeah, I had heard of this book, but I didn't know what it was about when I picked it up. But I was really fascinated, and I think I gave this one a 5 star because it was really good. And then the next book that I got has I've seen it a few people recommend. It's called Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop. I know I'm saying that wrong. I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but so good. I kind of I felt that this book was going to be like really pricky and like cute and just like it's a bookstore in South Korea and it's just going to be like happy and these people you're going to fall in love with all these like quirky characters and you do really connect with these characters, but it's not overly peppy. And which was good. It was a nice change from what I was thinking it would be. So yeah, it was really good. All of these characters make progress towards like bettering their lives, but it's super slow and super realistic, which is what I really appreciated about, because sometimes I feel like when you read those extra perky happy books of like, oh look how much hard work they put in and it paid off in this quick time frame, it doesn't seem realistic and it kind of makes your own struggle harder. But to know that you're struggling at the same rate as these characters and like slowly improving step by step was a really nice. Okay, and then back to Their Eyes Were Watching God that was recommended in the biography or the interviews with Alice Walker. This one is by Zora Neale Hurston. And this was such a good book. Very sad, but beautiful story about a woman, a black woman in the South in the early, I want to say 1900s, just trying to find love. Like that's all she's after, and she meets several men that she think is going to bring that love to her, but it just doesn't pan out. And then when she finally does find love, it's short lived. And it gives a great idea of what it's like to live in the South during that time, but also just like from a female's perspective, it was very lovely. Definitely 5 star. Definitely one of my favorite books. So absolutely recommend this one. And then the next two were other ones that I found at the thrift store. They're both by Lisa C. These ones, well, okay, let me start with this one. Snowflower and the Secret Fan is about two young women when they're very little. They grow up in like rural traditional China where they still practice foot binding, and it's just their lives together as like they call them Lao Tang, and it kind of means like your soul sister, like your best friend. You're like no matter what happens, you are always tied to this person, and it's like even more intimate than the relationship between like a husband and wife. And so it's about these two girls that become Lao Tang, and then they grow up together and they like share in each other's sorrows and joys, and then they get married, and then they share in their like married lives and the birth of their children. Really good. The second one I read from her was Shanghai Girls, set in 1937 Shanghai, and it's about two sisters who come from a very well-off family in that area, and that all changes when the Japanese attack China and Shanghai specifically. They have to evacuate, and even before this, their father, who's well off, he goes into a lot of debt, and the only way he can save the family is to sell his modern daughters is into arranged marriages to these two brothers in America. which these, because it's 1937 and they live in Shanghai and they're very modern women, they're just like completely appalled that their father would ever do this, and they try and get out of it, but then they end up going to America through all of these like awful, awful scenarios because war is happening through China, so they have to escape, and all these bad things happen to them and their mom. And then they get to America and they end up living in Chinatown. Really good book, except the ending was really abrupt. And it just kind of like left you completely hanging. It was just like wide open. But I did some research and it looks like there is a sequel to this, but still worth reading. I think I gave it a 3, maybe 4, just because it, like I said, the ending just was like cut you off. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading more of her books in the future. And the last book that I just finished reading was my Hygge Home by, I'm going to say Meek Weeking. No, I'm saying that wrong. But I think he also wrote Little Book of Hygge. And I have not read any of these. I didn't know if they'd be like cutesy and just more for like decoration, or if they'd have like good information in them. So I wanted to rent this one from the library to see if I liked it and see if they were worth like investing in. And I ended up really liking it. It gave a lot of statistics of like different areas in your like home life to make it more cozy. And the author's, I think he's like the president or the owner of like, it's called like the Happiness Institution or Happiness. I'll find it. But he does a lot of research on what makes people happy around the world and like how to improve it in your own life. So this book was all about how to create a Hygge home, which is like the Danish word for just like cozy, that like nice. It's kind of like cottagecore, but for the Danes is what I'm imagining. But it's like just doing activities that make you feel good, connect you to your community, that make you feel fulfilled. So like he'll talk about like how to create good spaces. You don't have to have a lot of space to do it. You just have to have like the right elements. Same with lighting, and like different textures around the house. But then, so that's kind of what I thought the whole book would be about, is creating like a cozy house. But it went beyond that and talked about, one of the chapters was called Hygge Homemade, and it had to do with like how baking homemade bread or canning jams just can bring fulfillment to your life. And so it talks about like how community gardens have really made an impact on people of like typically low incomes, and just how you can bring it into your life, and how to bring it into your life every day. I think I gave, this one was another 4-star. There were a lot of 4 and 5 stars this month. But yeah, so that's everything I've read through January through March. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've found a couple new books for your reading list. I love reading. I wish, the only thing about these videos is I don't want to spoil anything for you, so it's really hard for me to like give a condensed version of what I think without spoiling anything. So I hope I didn't give away any spoilers and still made it interesting. I think April will be another month that I go over on my only buying 2 books a month, because there's like 4 in my checkout cart that I really want. So, oh well, I could be spending my money on much worse things, so I'm okay with that. Anyways, I hope you've had a wonderful day, and I will see you next week for another video.